What is in a voice? What is in a voice? Now that's a little riff on what is in a name. And we don't have names unless we have voices that can pronounce our names in order that we might hear them. So what is in a voice? Well, a voice, our voices, human voices, are really the miracle of sound. And sound is produced, takes three things. Compressed air, something that vibrates, and then a little bit of mystery called resonance, which is that which surrounds whatever is vibrating to make a sound unique and different. So, with regard to us, compressed air comes from, now high school biology, you'll get this. Compressed air, or physics, or physiology, I should say. What makes the compressed air in our voices?
Diaphragm.
Lungs, and there's a muscle called your
Diaphragm.
right. And when your diaphragm contracts irregularly, what is that called? Hiccups, right? Which do produce sound, except it's sound you can't control. That's the problem. So there, right, compressed air. Then something vibrates called your vocal cords and your larynx. They vibrate at a certain frequency. And then the real pièce de résistance is resonance, which is caused by your upper body, by your sinus cavities, by your head. The sound is vibrating in there, and because of all of that, every human voice is unique. Every human voice is unique. Now, you know, when you go to the nightclub and there are those great people that can imitate voices, you know, you think it's so-and-so right there in front of you, but if you listen carefully enough, it really isn't quite the same voice. So that's the background for this image of Jesus, the Good Shepherd, and shepherds being called each by voice, because in Jesus' time, when sheep were penned for the evening, they would be put into one common sheep pen or sheepfold that would be constructed by stones and whatever to kind of corral them in. They all would be put together for safety. The shepherd sleeps at the door or the gate to keep the predators out. And in the morning, each shepherd with their distinct call calls their flock, and the sheep just separate into the flocks to which they belong, and off they go for another day. The miracle of sound that sheep can hear, and they recognize the different voices of their shepherds. Something like, I think, mothers can do this with their children, although dads can do it too, but sometimes dads are asleep at the switch a little bit, but that's another sermon. Now, I'll save that for Father's Day. It will be my last sermon, but save it for Father's Day. But mothers, you know, you're at the daycare and you can hear your child, even if it's your child's cry or your child's voice. Amongst all of that, you can hear that individual voice. That's your child. And your child can recognize mom's voice and dad's voice as well. Tabitha heard her name called and spoken. Tabitha in the story in Acts of the Apostles may very well have died. It's also possible she was in some kind of a coma. We're not quite sure from the details. But do you know, if you are nursing and caring for someone in a coma, you're told, make sure you talk to them because they can hear, and they can hear your voice even if they can't acknowledge. And Tabitha hears her voice called, her name called, and rises back, comes out of her sleep, out of her coma, out of death, back to new life because she hears her voice. So I'm taking the advantage of this voice-based sermon to have a little demonstration of the organ. Now, for those of you, I'm sure most of you who've been here a while realize we have a repurposed pipe organ from St. Columba's Church, which was just off Jefferson Avenue in Jefferson Chalmers. It was built in 1928. And you might not know it exists because it's in this chamber behind me, behind those kind of looking window-like openings. All the pipes are there. 1928. Vintage E.M. Skinner organ. The way it was always constructed is the way it is now. And pipe organs work just like the human voice. There's compressed air from a gizmo called a blower that blows it into a chest, which is a big box. And the pipes are essentially whistles that sit on the top of the chest. It's a little more complicated than that, but that's the basics. Compressed air flows through these pipes when the right keys are pressed, and it is a whistle. And the rest of the pipe vibrates, there's resonance because of the kind of pipe, and then you hear the sound. Normally, the pipes are all played in combinations called registration. But today, with my secret assistant, Christian, who is all prepared for this, having heard about this 20 minutes ago, but nothing phases organists. They roll with the punches. We're going to have a little demonstration of some of the resources of the organ. Now, he will be playing the same note, A, which is vibrating at 440 cycles a second, in case you want to time it. And you're going to hear a variety of pipes, all the same pitch, completely different sounds. And you have to listen because some of them are soft. So the first one, Christian, that's called the diapason, in case you'd like to write to your friends. Pretty good, okay? The next one. Play the first one again, please. Now the second one. Hear the difference? Very slight difference in the body, the overtones. The third one. One more time, that's particularly beautiful. This is called a harmonic flute. It's doubled the pressure, so it gets the upper tones going even more richly. Okay, next one. Another flute. How does it compare to that? Sounds covered, doesn't it? One more time, that one. Now to another one. It's called sometimes a string. It's not a string, it's still a flute pipe, but this is the next one. Little thready, right? A little stringy, okay. Now we're going to shift gears. Some pipes are just those. They're just kind of air across a mouth. Others have something that vibrates called a tongue, and they're like party horns. Same idea as a party horn. This is one of them. It's a reed stop. What instrument does it remind you of? Those who said clarinet are the winners of today's contest and receive a free cup of coffee. Yes, it's a clarinet. Skinner was a genius at what we call imitative stops that sound like the orchestra. So one more time. Our clarinet has a minor third overtone, very prominent. Okay, next. Sound louder? Because it's right there. This section of the organ is closer to you. Next. Hear it kind of, with a little bit of air in the sound. It's called a roar flute. It rumbles a bit. Now we're back to the orchestra. What do you think? Trumpet, right. Trumpets are very easy to imitate at the organ. That is a trumpet. Next one. This one may be a little harder. Any guess? Oboe. Yes, it's the oboe stop. Yeah, I think Rosemary said oboe. Did you, Rosemary? You did, okay. You get an extra cup of coffee. Now another reed stop. This is called the vox humana, or human voice. And it's not as if, maybe play a chord with that one so we could, yeah, it sounds almost like a group of voices singing in the background. Now we're going to try two together, and this is a little interesting stuff. One rank is called the celeste, and it's a little sharp, meaning it's pitched higher. So the two of them together create an interesting sound. Can you hear it wiggle? One more, really look at it. It beats, right? It's slightly out of tune. Good music is slightly out of tune. You know what makes congregational singing wonderful? We're all slightly out of tune. But together, God likes that sound. And now we'll end up with the organ. There are pipes at the back behind the grill, which Christian uses from time to time. Here's one of them. It's a doppel flute. It has two mouths on it. That's the doubled part. Now we're back to the orchestra. Anyone want to take a guess at what that is? French horn. Yeah, French horn. Yeah. One more time with the French horn. You can hear the bubble sound. Yeah. And then, last but not least, it's another variant of the trumpet called tuba. But those are all the same pitch, and they're all 440 cycles a second, and each one of them you can tell apart. It's an A, right? You can tell them all apart because the construction of the pipes, the pressure, how it's all put together makes it unique. God calls us each by name, and we can hear our voice when it is called, because we all have unique voices, and God knows that. And if there were no atmosphere and no air, there would be no sound. But there is, and when it comes to God, it's called love. Through that, God calls us so that we can hear when God speaks to us, and God can hear us when we speak to God. All in an atmosphere of love. So we give thanks for the beauty and the miracle of sound, but also for the miracle of voice. Because voice is what gives hope, voice is what gives meaning, and voice is what gives us a chance to be with God, to listen to God, and to have God call us by name. In the name of God, Creator, Redeemer, and Sustainer. Amen.